Today on Steelers Talk, I'm going to be declassifying the Pittsburgh Steelers' 2026 QB plan. I think the Steelers have a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C to address the quarterback position here in 2026. I'm going to be breaking down all three plans in detail. I'm going to let you guys know what exactly the Steelers are going to do to approach this position heading into a crucial 2026 campaign. So who's your guy? Let me know down there in the comment section to kick us off here. Who do you want the Steelers starting quarterback to be next year? Are you an Aaron Rodgers guy? Are you a Will Howard guy? Do you want to bring in somebody else? Do you like Ty Simpson? Do you like Drew Aller? Is there somebody else that you want to bring in? Let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section to kick us off. Now, the first thing that you guys have to know about the Pittsburgh Steelers' strategy in general when it comes to team building heading into this offseason is that they're going to be taking a win-now posture. And I know there's a lot of fans out there that have been pushing to embrace a full-scale rebuild for a number of seasons now, and the team never listens to them, okay? And they're not going to start listening to them now. If you listen to Art Rooney, if you listen to Omar Khan, if you listen to Mike McCarthy, they're all talking about this team as if they're a playoff caliber roster that maybe just needs a couple of patches here and there, and then they could, take that next step to being a legitimate Super Bowl contender as early as next season. And, they're going to do whatever they feel gives them the best chance to win a Super Bowl this year at the quarterback position. They don't want to feel like they're quote-unquote wasting a season with a quarterback just to get a good draft pick, for example, like a lot of Steelers fans think is a good idea. That is not something that the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to be doing heading into the 2026 campaign. Now, with that said, that doesn't mean that they won't be looking to the future necessarily, okay? Like they can absolutely, go with maybe a shorter-term option at quarterback, but also have, younger quarterbacks on the roster developing, learning from Mike McCarthy and the coaches under him to develop that quarterback into the next franchise quarterback after the short-term option leaves. So I believe Pittsburgh has three plans, okay? They've got a plan A, they've got a plan B, and they've got a plan C at the quarterback position this offseason, okay? And I think their plan A is pretty obvious. If you listen to Mike McCarthy, if you listen to the reporting on, what the Steelers players feel inside the Steelers locker room, plan A is to bring back Aaron Rodgers as their starting quarterback for another season and then to develop the future at the position behind him as backup quarterbacks, okay? And, the people in the building clearly want Rodgers back. There's been a number of different reports from Mark Kaboly to Brooke Pryor to, anybody that has inside knowledge of the team will tell you the players want Rodgers back. They feel like he's still a high-end starting quarterback in this league. They love his leadership style, and they want him back for another season. And then the people in the front office are taking that to heart, and they've, they didn't hire Mike McCarthy to bring back Rodgers, but like Adam Schefter pointed out, it's not going to hurt, right? So I do think that the people inside the Steelers building want Rodgers back, and I think the reason for that, guys, is pretty simple. Rodgers gives this team the best chance to win now, okay? And I know a lot of Steelers fans are tired of the win now strategy with a older quarterback that, might just have one more season left in him or whatever the case may be on a short-term, team-friendly deal. They want to embrace the future at the position. But, I think that when you look at which is what quarterback out there is going to give you the best chance to win a Super Bowl this year, I think Aaron Rodgers pretty clearly gives you the best chance, all right? The people in the locker room clearly love him and want him back. He's got that established chemistry with the people in the locker room as well on the offensive side of the ball. He won't be expensive at all. He might cost $10 million. He might even take something less than that if it means that he can get another receiving weapon or, another really great piece on defense. Like, he's all about winning at this point, guys, in his career. He's not going to want a ton of money, and that's going to open up opportunities to bring in more players in free agency and via trade during the offseason. Also, he's got extensive playoff experience, and yes, this does matter. There's a reason why a 43-year-old Tom Brady was able to win a Super Bowl, especially because he was, a similar type of skill set to Aaron Rodgers is now, as a super smart, non-mobile, but really good arm talent quarterback. Having those 22, 23 playoff games under your belt, it really does help when you are in the postseason and you are in a level playing field with somebody on the other sideline. And then also, he elevated the offense in 2023, in my opinion, guys. And I think Rodgers, because he's the quarterback, takes a lot of flack for the offense being average or, not up to snuff, not like a high-level offense last year. But something that just gets lost in the conversation is that the Pittsburgh Steelers had a bottom three, maybe the worst wide receiver room room in the NFL in 2025. They only had one legitimate receiver in DK Metcalf, who was getting double-teamed a lot of the time. He had an OC in Arthur Smith, who would barely play his second-best downfield weapon, and Pat Freiermuth. He would play Jonnu Smith, who was terrible all the time. And despite all that, guys, Rodgers was still able to get this team to about league average in points per game, EPA per play, and success rate. I mean, if I would have told you heading into last season that we would have had a bottom 3 or the worst wide receiver room in the league, where do you have thought the Steelers would have ranked? Bottom 5, at least bottom 10? But no, the Steelers, I think, overperformed given where their wide receiver room was last year. And I think Aaron Rodgers, with the smart brand of football that he played here in Pittsburgh, deserves a lot of credit for getting the most out of the Steelers offense last year. And if you can get him a better wide receiver room this offseason, which is very doable, by the way, like you've got cap resources, right? Rodgers won't be costing all that much to bring back. You have draft resources. You could spend your first round pick on a top flight wide receiver talent. If you get 2 more good wide receivers for Aaron Rodgers, that's going to open up DK Metcalf. It's going to give you more options when teams that play the Steelers play man coverage against Pittsburgh, and Rodgers is just going to have more opportunities to push the ball down the field than he had in 2025. And I think you're going to see his numbers skyrocket if that is the case. And then also bringing back Rodgers for another year would provide younger quarterbacks on the roster with a chance to sit and learn. And I think sitting and learning and developing in that way is such an underrated thing in the National Football League. Like, fans just want to see what these quarterbacks are immediately. Like today's society, we just want to see what these guys got immediately. But sometimes you got to sit, you got to learn, you got to develop your footwork, you got to develop your mental processing ability. And sometimes, it's really beneficial to sit behind an all-time great like Aaron Rodgers for 2 seasons, or at least 1 season, and, develop in that way. And, that doesn't just, include Will Howard, which it will include Will Howard, but it could also include a quarterback that they draft in the middle rounds of the 2026 NFL draft. It is possible that the Steelers add another younger quarterback to the mix to learn behind Aaron Rodgers. You guys can take a look at some of their options here. If they want to go first-round quarterback and they fall in love with Ty Simpson, they could go with him. Otherwise, on day 2, you could probably look at guys like Trinidad Chambliss, Garrett Nussmeier, Drew Aller, Carson Beck. You could maybe even get one of those guys on early day 3. Some of those guys have a lot of good talent, especially, guys like Drew Aller, just all the arm talent in the world. Garrett Nussmeier's got a very quick release and a good mental processor. Like, there is some promise to be found there in the middle rounds of the NFL draft at the quarterback position this year, and giving them a year to sit behind Aaron Rodgers and compete with Will Howard for the future is not the worst plan in the world to adopt, in my opinion. However, they don't need to force drafting a quarterback. Like, it's not like they have to draft Ty Simpson in round 1, and they don't have to draft, Drew Aller in round 3 or something like that, and reach for a quarterback in the draft this year. If you have Aaron Rodgers and you've got Will Howard, you can pretty much, draft the way that your board kind of falls and not feel like you're desperate to have to draft a quarterback in the NFL draft this year. Another thing that they could do with this strategy is that they could bring in a quote-unquote rehab quarterback option. And we've seen a lot of quarterbacks be like highly touted, NFL draft prospects that get taken early, and, they go to a bad situation and they flame out early on in their career. Then they go somewhere else with a good quarterback developer, cough, cough, like Mike McCarthy, and then turn into a legitimate starter in this league. We've seen it with guys like Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield and others, and you guys can see some of the options that are out there. Anthony Richardson, could be an option. Zach Wilson is another guy, former number 2 overall pick, tons of arm talent they could consider bringing in as a backup. Will Levis is another guy, super quick release, really talented guy, but needs to learn how to play the game smarter. Could really benefit from a year under Aaron Rodgers. Spencer Rattler, somebody that, has some talent to him as well. And then Trey Lance, you could consider bringing one of those guys in to be your backup quarterback next year, compete with Will Howard to be the future of the franchise. But at the end of the day, there is a chance that Aaron Rodgers ends up saying goodbye to football and he ends up retiring. And in that case, the Steelers are going to have to adjust and go to a different plan. I think Rodgers is pretty clearly this team's plan A at the quarterback position. But what happens if Rodgers retires? Well, coming up here on Steelers Talk, I'm going to be revealing Pittsburgh's plans B and C at the quarterback position if Aaron Rodgers decides to retire this upcoming offseason. But where are you guys at? Let me know where you guys are at down there in the comments section. For today's pinned question, what is the percent chance that Aaron Rodgers is back with the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2026? Put it on a scale of 0, meaning no chance he's back next year, to 100, meaning he's already back, essentially. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section for today's pinned question. Just a second here, I'm going to tell you about today's sponsor. While I tell you about today's sponsor, give me a number between 0 and 100 down there in the comments. And guys, we have brand new merch available for purchase here at Chat Sports, specifically Steelers Talk branded stuff on our website right now. I'm going to put the link to that in the comments and description of today's show. And we have a brand new collection, are married into this collection just in time for Valentine's Day. And I got to tell you guys, time is running out to guarantee that your package can get to your doorstep before Valentine's Day. So if you want to get this for your significant other, and you think that she would absolutely love either the black or the white sweatshirt that we have available on our website right now, do not wait. You can also get one of our t-shirts that we have available as well. That one only comes in the white, just so you guys know. But the company that we're pairing with for this venture, guys, is they only have this most super comfortable and premium materials that we're really proud to partner with here at Chat Sports, guys. And also the sweatshirts are unisex, so if you want to wear your married into this sweatshirt around the house or on Steelers game days, you can also do so as well. So if this does well, that will prove to our bosses, guys, that this kind of merch opportunity works, and we should do more of them. For St. Patrick's Day, which is coming up, we could do it for the 4th of July, the NFL draft, for any new players the Steelers add via free agency or trade this offseason. All right, the opportunities are endless here, guys, but we have to prove to our bosses that this is something that we can sell and that you guys actually want. So if you want to help support the channel, again, the link is down there in the comments and description of today's show to get something for your special someone just in time for Valentine's Day. Now, plan B for the Pittsburgh Steelers at the quarterback position, if Aaron Rodgers retires and leaves football, is to sign a potential long-term answer at the quarterback position that can help this team try and compete on day one. Somebody that isn't a complete long shot to be a good starting quarterback on day one as their tenure of the Pittsburgh Steelers starting quarterback begins this season. And, Malik Willis is really the first guy on the list to discuss here when it comes to plan B QB possibilities, guys, because he kind of fits what this Steelers team is looking for. Mike McCarthy is well known as somebody that likes athletic style quarterbacks that can make plays out of structure. Malik Willis did a really good job with Green Bay this past year. It was a small sample size, so it absolutely is a risk, but he's got a really good deep ball. He looked like he cleaned up his footwork a lot in Green Bay. His mental processing is cleaner than it was in college. He still has the excellent arm strength, excellent playmaking instincts, and dynamic rushing ability that you look for. He's played in Green Bay as well, so he can play in the AFC North and in the conditions he would be asked to play in here in this division. He's still only 27 years old, so he can be your long-term answer at the position. If Aaron Rodgers walks away, I think Malik Willis will probably be their number one target, but it's also well documented that Mike McCarthy likes the skill set of one Kyler Murray, who is likely to be traded away from the Arizona Cardinals this offseason. Now, I know Kyler isn't the most popular figure among Steelers fans in terms of a quarterback target, and believe me, I understand why. He doesn't see over the middle of the field all that well. He hasn't played particularly great in the McVay-Shanahan-style offense they tried to run in Arizona his final years there. But I think he would be a better fit in a McCarthy-style offense than a McVay-Shanahan-style offense that's more shotgun, it's more spread. I think they do more stuff with the quarterback run game than they did with him. Kyler certainly wouldn't be my number one option, but I do think he would be on Pittsburgh's radar if Aaron Rodgers ends up retiring. Now, Mac Jones is another name to consider. Certainly played at a starter quality level in San Francisco this year. The thing is, it sounds like San Francisco has already shut down trade talks for Mac Jones. They really value him as a backup quarterback. So, listen, man, if the Steelers throw a second-round pick at them, there's a price tag, I'm sure, where, they can't say no to it. But if you're hoping to get Mac Jones for like a 4th or 5th round pick, I just really don't think that's a possibility at this point. Plus, Mac doesn't have a super strong arm, and I wonder if he can play in the AFC North when it gets windy and cold in the colder months here in Pittsburgh. Then, Anthony Richardson's another guy that they could consider. He has started NFL games, and if they really want to take a big swing and start Anthony Richardson week 1 of next year, I guess they could think about doing that. And then Will Howard, you can also include him on this category as well, because like maybe they do think that he's ready to start week 1. Maybe they do think that he's like ready to play in NFL games right now. And if that's the case, you have to at least mention his name, even though I think he's much less likely than some of the other names on this list. And honestly, when it comes to the plan B options, guys, I think the top 2 guys that the Steelers would really, truly consider are Malik Willis and Kyler Murray. Similar skill sets, undersized guys, but dynamic athletes and with dynamic skill sets, great arm talent, great rushing ability, all that different stuff, playmaking ability out of structure. If Aaron Rodgers retires, I think the Steelers will turn their focus to Malik Willis and Kyler Murray and hope they can land one of them. But then if you can't land Malik Willis, let's say he goes to Miami or whatever, and then Kyler Murray goes to the New York Jets or something, and the Steelers lose out on one of those 2 guys. Plan C, in my opinion, would be to sign a bridge-level quarterback on a really small, team-friendly deal, maybe even vet minimum deal, and then, bring in young quarterbacks to battle with that veteran quarterback in Latrobe at training camp and see who comes out on top. Okay, and, guys that fit into this category are guys like Geno Smith, somebody that has played with DK Metcalf, played a lot better in Seattle than he did in Las Vegas. I would consider him more of a bridge starter, kind of fringe starter type, where if he comes to the Steelers on a super team-friendly deal, you could bring him in as a veteran option. Same thing goes for Kirk Cousins, Joe Flacco, Tyrod Taylor, Marcus Mariota. None of these guys, by the way, I'm saying are good starting options, all right? This is like the worst-case scenario for the Pittsburgh Steelers in terms of their mind and their approach to the quarterback position. But I would also say, if you're a Will Howard fan out there, this is like the best-case scenario for him to have a chance to start week 1. Like if you bring in Geno Smith or Kirk Cousins or Tyrod Taylor or Joe Flacco and those guys just suck in the preseason, and then Will Howard is just lighting it up, and he's lighting it up in practices, and he's clearly the best option on the team, this is kind of the path where Will Howard would be your week 1 starter next year. Is if you can't get Rodgers to come back, if you can't get, Kyler Murray or Malik Willis, and then the veteran quarterback you end up bringing in is just absolutely terrible. That would open up the opportunity for a guy like Will Howard. But another thing, too, is that I also think that, this is the best chance that Pittsburgh takes a guy like Ty Simpson in round 1. Because think about it. Like, if you're bringing in Geno Smith, if you're bringing in Joe Flacco, if you're bringing in Kirk Cousins, these guys that clearly have a shelf life on their NFL careers, like, wouldn't you want to go get somebody that you really believe in round 1 and, really start the future with that young quarterback? Like, if the Steelers fall in love with Ty Simpson, and the early reports are they really like him, if they can't get Aaron Rodgers to come back, and if they miss out on Malik Willis or Kyler Murray, I think Ty Simpson might have the best chance to be the starting quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2026. Now, in terms of the guys I think are the most likely to be the week 1 starter for the Pittsburgh Steelers this year, this is how I would kind of rank them, all right? I would go Aaron Rodgers, number 1, far and away the favorite at this point. I would say there's well over a 50% chance he's the starting quarterback. Then number 2, I would say Malik Willis. Number 3, I would say Kyler Murray. Then there's probably a large gap. I think that it's going to be Rodgers, Willis, or Murray. But then outside of those 3, I would say Geno Smith is probably the most likely bridge option they would bring in. And then Will Howard I would put in there at number 5. Honorable mention goes to Ty Simpson, who they could draft in round 1. So predict it for me down there in the comment section. Who will be Pittsburgh's week 1 starting quarterback next season? I'm hoping it's Aaron Rodgers because I think he gives the Steelers the best chance to win next year, and it provides the Steelers a chance to develop some future options on the team while Rodgers tries to lead this team to a championship. So let me know what you guys think down there in the comments. Make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already, because we're going to be getting you guys the latest quarterback news and rumors surrounding the Pittsburgh Steelers this offseason. I think we're going to get a decision from Rodgers sooner rather than later. Definitely before free agency, in my opinion. And whenever that decision comes down, we'll be making sure to get you guys breaking news coverage and what that means for the Steelers heading into next season.